We're going to talk about some quick annotation techniques to help you guys out with reading To Kill a Mockingbird and to know what to look for. So you're reading the text and you don't really know what you're supposed to annotate. You just know that annotations are something that you write down in the book. Now, if it was your own book, you would write directly in the book, and that's probably what you'll do for college. But for high school, when you're borrowing the books from us, please write on sticky notes or just on a sheet of paper. The point of annotations is to help you out so that you can work smarter and not harder. By the time we get to the end of this book, we're going to write an essay or have a test. Well, in our class, we'll have an essay, but let's say that it was a class that you're going to have a test on the book. When it comes time to study the book, rather than go back and reread everything to cram all the information in, your annotations should help you guys out to be able to quickly find the relevant and important information. Now, for an essay like a literature course, what you're going to be able to do is use all of your annotations to help you guys to compartmentalize different ideas to write an essay. What do you annotate? Well, that's always the tough thing. And at first, you don't really know. That's why you read a couple of chapters and then you kind of decide what you want to look for. If you were reading just for fun and annotating for fun, which is what I do with really complex books that are like puzzle books or books that have some sort of a mystery to it or books that are meant to be really interpreted, English teacher nerdy stuff, you would find your own ways that work through that. And I'll talk about some of those later in the year. And if you're interested, just ask me about Life, a User's Manual, which is the ultimate book for annotating. Now, you're reading To Kill a Mockingbird and you read the first chapter and you're like, okay, there's this character, Scout. Scout's a pretty cool character. And a few chapters in, you realize all of a sudden, oh my gosh, Scout is not a boy, Scout is a girl. First part of the book, you read her as if she is a boy, and that kind of goes along with some of the themes of the story. Remember, she's raised by her father, she hangs out with her brother, she doesn't have a mother in her life, only Calpurnia is there as her kind of motherly or womanly influence. And so you're starting to think, okay, there's something going on thematically here, and Scout maybe does what she does, like fighting at school, because of the way that she is raised, and her name, Scout, kind of misleads you at first, and then you start to realize, maybe it's just a tomboyish name for her, because you then realize that her name is actually Jean Louise Finch and not Scout Finch. So, when you guys are continuing to read, you're going to be looking for things that maybe show the difference between stereotypical gender roles in a novel and the way Scout acts versus the way that Jem acts. And you're going to start to see those things change throughout the story. Scout will start to grow up. Remember, we said this is a coming-of-age story, so Scout's going to be growing up throughout the story. She's going to be acting differently than she did at the beginning of the text. Also, what you want to be looking for when you're annotating is any themes that you see running in the story. One theme that we are looking for is coming of age or youth versus age. Scout's trying to navigate a world, and sometimes she has to navigate a very adult world in the sense that she's dealing with things that her father Atticus is dealing with in his job as a lawyer, and you're going to see that as a pretty heavy section of the book later on. So you want to make sure that when you guys are annotating, you're kind of keeping thematic elements in place and keeping track of those things. So anytime that Scout starts to realize, wow, adults do things differently than kids do, or there's a good passage in the book where he talks to Miss Maudie when Miss Maudie says the things that happen that you don't see, you never really understand. And Scout has a conversation with Miss Maudie that's kind of eye-opening for her. But those are things that you guys would want to annotate because they're showing a longer theme. They're showing something going through the story that's not just like one little event. Like Dill shows up is a good event to annotate because it brings in a new character, but you don't want to annotate every time Dill shows up in a scene. You don't want to be like, wow, Dill showed up again. All right, guys, I will check back with you in a little bit and see how your annotations are going, but right now just look for things that are running themes or important things that keep coming up that you see as bigger picture ideas, and that's what you want to annotate. And we'll do something with these annotations later. If we do them effectively, it makes the work you do at the end of the story so much better. Let's look at a more specific example from the text so you guys can see how to take something from the page and put it into an annotation. So here around page 60 and 61, we have a conversation taking place between Scout and her neighbor, Miss Maudie. And let's just start right here where it says Miss Maudie stopped rocking and her voice hardened. "You're too young to understand it," she said. "But sometimes the Bible in the hand of one man is worse than a whiskey bottle in the hand of, your father." This shows the difference between a young person's way of thinking and an adult's way of thinking. Miss Maudie is using an analogy here, and Scout takes it literally, and she starts to talk about how Atticus doesn't drink whiskey, maybe he tried it once but didn't like it. So what we have to look at here is how do we translate that into something that we annotate, something important, something thematic. Well, this is showing youth versus age, and Miss Maudie is giving Scout a life lesson here, and maybe Scout's not going to understand it until later because she's just taking it literally right now. Now, if we continue on the page, they start to talk about Boo Radley. She says, if he's not, he should be by now. The things that happen to people we never really know. What happens in houses behind closed doors. What secrets. So this is important because it's telling us here that there's a world that Scout doesn't see. There's the childlike world that she has when she's playing and she's pretending, and then there's the real world out there, and then there's the world that she doesn't see behind closed doors, and she has a hard time with that. It's kind of like spatial awareness or object permanence, right? If something's not right in front of your face, it doesn't exist. And Scout is now starting to realize that, wow, there might be things in that house happening that I don't understand. So this would be a good annotation as well. So either of these work really well. So what you would do is you would take a sticky note normally, and you would write something like this. Miss Maudie passes on knowledge about Boo Radley and gives wise tips about life. And I just marked this as page 60 or page 60, 61. It's not a huge deal as long as this is going to direct you towards something thematic later on in the text, or as you're getting to the point where you need to study or write an essay. What you would do then is you would stick this in the text on that page, and then your book would be full of sticky notes. If you don't have sticky notes, you can just use little slips of paper, or you can just write them down in a notebook. So you could just simply write this out in your notebook with the page number and maybe label them by chapter and make it look really nice like a graphic organizer. That's going to be up to how you want to do that, as long as you have the info. Now, a cool thing that's going to happen later on is when we go to actually write an essay, and I say, okay, you're going to write about the theme of youth versus age, you can find all of your annotations, especially if they're on sticky notes or on slips of paper. You can find all of your annotations about youth versus age, and you can put them all together on a desktop or a table or in your notebook, and all of a sudden now you have tons of information that you can write about that you can use as information in your essay, concrete details, things to analyze, thematic elements. So that's the point of the annotations. All right, so the annotation should be something that helps you. It shouldn't be something that you're just wasting your time on. It really should genuinely be something that helps you to understand the text. Those of you that struggle with reading comprehension, or if you're thinking that you read and you don't really understand what's going on, annotating can force an understanding. It can kind of trick you into understanding because you understand more than you think. You're just not really connecting it yet. And that's kind of the goal of this year, is to show you guys how you can make these connections in literature that you never really saw before. Not only within a text and characters, but between other texts and between texts that were written thousands of years ago and texts that are being written today. You can find similar thematic elements and connections. It's like one big literature conspiracy theory. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Bye.